Is there a live stream link as well to share?
It's going to be. I am finishing up some stuff last minute, and then I'll be having it live on Periscope and Facebook.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Where will you be streaming it from on Facebook?
Neuroclastics page.
That's cool.
Which one of the 20?
Facebook, just a neuroclassic, not group, but page. We got only one.
Got it. Got it. I'm just being silly.
Hey, Cece, I recognize you from the Black Women Lead conference the other night with Laverne and Shannon. Ira, you can speak if you want. Okay, so I guess we can go ahead and get started a little bit. We can start with introductions. We might need to kind of just give a summary in a few minutes again for people because tech issues. So I'm Tara Vance. I founded Neuroclastic, and I have been working heavily with Laverne. I got sent Matthew's just a link to what happened to Matthew, the change.org petition. And I thought, oh, I'll look into this, and it's sad, but but I went down the rabbit hole, and I was about 9-10 hours consecutively just reading everything that I could. And about 5:30 in the morning, I messaged Laverne. And when I got a hold of her, she almost immediately responded, and she was like, I'm going to call you. And she just gave me all the things. All the court transcripts, all the everything. And so I just, I couldn't stop with the deep dive. And it was just so clear to me. It was glaringly obvious that his lawyer sold him out. I don't know if Laverne can say that, but I will say that. And that I was just dumbfounded that no one talked about Matthew being autistic, having a traumatic brain injury in his history, having seizures in his history. But the first conversation, 60 seconds into talking to Laverne, I interrupted her to say, oh, he had a seizure. And so a lot has changed in the way that we view the case since then. And that's me, and that's been my involvement. And I've just been working with a lot of amazing people, and kind of the whole world has been getting involved, and met a lot of great people, and a lot of really sad things have happened since then. But that is my story. So I'll let whoever wants to go next, go next.
It might be too difficult. We might want to kind of have you dictate that.
Okay, Laverne.
Hi, I'm Laverne Rushin. I'm Matthew Rushin's mom. As you all probably already know, Matthew was sentenced to 50 years with 40 years suspended for a car accident. It was non-fatal, no drugs, no alcohol. I've learned so much from the autistic community. Something called echolalia, which I didn't really understand, but now I do. I've learned you know, a great deal about this case, that if I had known what I know now, I don't, back then, you know, we would have, we would have prevailed. But I just, I want to thank everybody for being here.
Okay, Joel.
Yeah, I'm Joel Schwartz. I'm a clinical psychologist in Southern California. I've been following the case peripherally through Tara. We met, I don't know, how long was it, a couple of years ago, just online. I'm a neuroclassic contributor, and I'm a psychologist and therapist who practices from an explicitly neurodiversity affirming standpoint. And I run an online consulting business, as well as admin a 1,200 strong group called Neurodiversity Affirmative Therapists on Facebook, where we discuss these types of issues.
And thank you, Marcia.
Hi, so we're in the psychologist ballpark right now. I'm a psychologist, a clinical psychologist from Connecticut. We're representing different parts of the country here. I've been working on this for a couple months now. Initially, when we were just trying to put together more information to help Matthew and help Laverne and get some doctors to help define kind of what was going on, that would be part of the pardon packet, and hunting for people who would be interested in helping us let other people know about the case. The petition was out there, and we were very much trying to get some notice in the media as well. My own personal role has been to, I work with autistic people. I identify with neurodiversity. I have been kind of working as an quote expert consultant in terms of helping explain Matthew's neurodiversity for some of the media. And I'm just thrilled to know everyone's here and that we're all here for Matthew and for you, Laverne.
Thank you.
Okay, Cheyenne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cheyenne. I am an autistic grad student here in New York, and I first heard about Matthew's case, I believe, either from Tara or Raya through Twitter. Hi, Laverne. I haven't said hi to you. I'm just here to learn and contribute what I can.
Thank you. Beth.
Hi, my name's Beth Tolley, and one of the other folks who was working on this, I don't think she's on tonight, suggested I come on to talk about I come on to the team to talk about some of the things that I've been working on with the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint, in particular brain state-dependent functioning, some of the work of Bruce Perry. As it turns out, I didn't do a whole lot of that, and I think a lot more needs to be done, because that's an impact too for what happens right after a crash. But I immediately fell in love with Laverne and with Matthew, so I've been doing whatever I can to help the cause.
Sorry, I had to find my mic and unmute it. Can one of the hosts unmute Emmanuel? Every time I try to click to unmute him, the things jump around. And Wolfhart, you want to go next?
Sure. My documented name is Andrew James Sanchez. My Cherokee name is Wolfhart. I was scouted by Tara Vance, who I see as an adoptive mother, while making a comment on a post and explaining some of the aspects of autism to somebody quite boldly, if I remember correctly. I learned about Matthew's story from her, and he reminded me of a student that I used to tutor while I was taking psychology at SUNY Cobleskill. Um, as it stands now, his story has been a major inspiration for me to continue helping BIPOC autistic individuals, Black and Indigenous autistic individuals, especially in my community where I'm currently working with grandparents around the world. We have a large group of autistic individuals who are actually being raised by their grandparents who grew up in a different time and aren't quite ready to really embrace neurodiversity as they should. And so through my volunteer work with them, I'm trying to kind of teach a majority of them what it means to raise and be in the life of somebody who is autistic, as an autistic individual myself. It's kind of complicated because a lot of the time we have these people who grew up in a time where that whole statement comes from where children were to be seen but never heard and that kind of thing. So I'm glad to be here, and it's nice to finally meet Miss Laverne in person.
Nice to meet you too.
Hey, Tara,
Yes.
can I make a comment?
Sure.
Wolfie, it's nice to meet you, Wolfie. I am a grandparent of a fabulous teenager now who wasn't diagnosed until she was 10. She's now 14 with autism. And I adore her. I have learned so much. And I see, so I'm a grandparent. It to me, it is, when we got the diagnosis, it was a relief because we understood why things weren't being processed the same. And I would like to say that a lot of grandparents, thank you for what you're doing. I see as much difficulty with younger folks as, well, with everybody trying to understand it, but thank you.
Bless you. Thank you so much. That brings a smile to my face.
Raya.
Hi, my name's Raya. I don't really know what much there is to say. I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful that there are people bringing this to other people's attention and are willing to speak on not only the atrocity of like the general injustices around Black disabled people, but specifically about Matthew Rushin and how he's been mischaracterized and misrepresented, and I wish that we would have known about this prior, but we know about it now, and we're doing something now, and so that's good.
And Raya is amazing. And she helped so much for setting this up and helping us get this last minute thing together and salvage what we could when the link didn't work. Emmanuel?
Okay, you want me to go now? Hi, my name is Emmanuel. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Loud and clear.
Okay. My name is Emmanuel. I'm autistic, and I'm Black and autistic. I found out late that I was autistic around the age of 27. I've only been doing, I guess, personal self-advocacy work for about 2 or 3 years. I've spoken on numerous advocacy issues in that time. I was recruited by, I was asked to contribute on Neuroclastic for Tara in December, and I've been doing it ever since then. And it's a pleasure to finally meet Matthew's mother. It's nice to meet you, Laverne.
You too. Nice to meet you.
Right. I only know of Matthew's story through Tara personally, but it seems to be a prevailing pattern, and I see amongst Black disabled individuals. They kind of seem to get thrown into the prison system, and usually there's not a way out. Of course, it reminded me of the Darius McCollum story, under Free Darius Now, and you know, it galvanized me to help. I'll do what I can to help get Matthew's story out there, because I don't think he should be in prison. So
Thank you.
anything I can do to help, just please let us know. Please let me know, and thank you so much, Tara, for telling me about it so I could know more about it.
Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to bring up, and I know that there are more people in here who will chime in, Sarah and Ira and
Teresa.
Teresa. Yes. So if you will, since we're getting in 22 minutes, introduce yourself briefly when it's time. And Bree is supposed to be here, and if you're here, Bree, please say something in the comments so that I know who you are to unmute you. Anyway, so one thing that struck me about Matthew's case is there were so many different accounts from so many different witness statements and police statements. We still can't get the body cam footage. Lindsay, did you get the body cam footage? If you did, I don't know about that. But there's 12 complete hours of body cam footage, and Matthew said the same thing they denied your request.
I wonder why they denied it.
Wow.
It's there.
I don't know how they legally can continue to deny all the requests. The lawyer will not even share it with Laverne, the one that she paid an exorbitant amount of money to. But no, Laverne watched it. At no point in any of the footage, 12 hours, did Matthew say anything along the lines of, I was trying to kill myself, I want to die. As soon as he came out of the car, he said a man grabbed him because he was acting erratic. They said he was folding his arms over and over. He was touching his face. He was, quote, in hysterics, maybe in shock. And so another man sees that an older man is holding a younger Black man. And this man comes and joins in to restrain Matthew. And so he's got two strangers holding him. He's just had this terrible accident. And a third man comes and yells at him. Yay, Kayla's here. Yells at him, what the F are you trying to do? Are you trying to effing kill yourself? We don't know if Matthew said or not, yes, he is. But maybe he said, according to the non-body cammed officers, of the 17, only 3 officers supposedly overheard this, and those were the 3 who did not have body cams out of 17. So that's coincidence. But Matthew maybe said, maybe I was trying to kill myself. So I understand this completely, immediately, as echolalia. And that is something that autistic people do. But I want to, and we have several autistic people in here who are participants, but I want to prioritize Black autistic voices tonight. So, weigh in after the fact if no one else is. But Can somebody speak to what might happen to you if two strangers were restraining you while you were panicking? Yes, Kayla, let me make sure that you are unmuted. I tried to, but I just keep clicking it and nothing happens. Oh, there you are. Cool.
Um, for me, I'm never getting in trouble, but I remember like a few years ago, you know, we had used to have the fair in October, whatever, and me and my cousin, you know, we leaving the fair and going home, right? But the car is so far away than in the parking lot. And the car, you know, they nice, you know, they try to help us to get to near to the car, right? The car was nice. They're like, oh, we're gonna drive it to the my cousin's car. Well, I felt I'm, you know, back in the car. I ain't got arrested now. They just have me and my cousin get to the car. I feel real awkward. It's kind of like dead silence. Even though I don't get trouble with it, but I kind of a little scared at the same time. You know, what if it could be me? You know what I'm saying? If I get trouble, I think that why I never gonna get in trouble like that. And especially you hear out a black person, it's like just be careful. And that's how I kind of feel like, oh man, you know.
So just being around a police officer was enough, even if you hadn't done anything and you were in no trouble, like it still made you.
At the same time, I do talk to a cop like ain't no fear, but at the same time, it's like when you see them, you had to do something way like, oh, don't get in trouble, like something like just be careful,
Right.
like don't do nothing petty. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
how I feel, just be around police. And plus, I work at retail. I had to call the police when people steal something. But it didn't fire at the same time. It's kind of like, you also did my community dirty all them years. So there ain't no trust.
yeah.
You know, I do want to trust them, but the damn haven't done so in our community. Bad blood between the black community and the police community. So, and here for other people, I'm like, oh, F the police because they don't care about us, you know. I kind of believe it, like what's going on now. Kind of frustrated with what's going on. And to Miss Miss Rushin, I feel sorry for your son Matthew. I'm 1 year older than him. When I saw you in the other meeting, I felt bad, and I feel like the system did him dirty. And Barry here, that lawyer who was supposed to represent him, did him dirty. And I'm sorry. The system's just so corrupt and so messed up. It just made me feel like, damn, I'm not protected by the system either because I'm black. I also have a disability. So I'm not protected. It pissed me off. I just wish the systems would do better, but there's a lot of damage been done. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Kayla. That was, I'm having a hard time keeping my emotions in check. Wolfheart, do you want to speak to what might happen if you were terrified and strangers tried to restrain you?
Sure. Many times in my life, both with police and with school bullying, from both individuals and students and teachers when I was younger. When you're restrained, this was probably late 90s, early 2000s. Back then, there was no anti-bullying campaign. There was no, you know, if you talk to your parents, they'll be on your side. Unfortunately, my parents weren't like that, and there were times when I'd have meltdowns. You know, as autistic individuals, we're very sensitive to various types of stimuli, the bright lights of school fluorescent lights, you know, the buzzing sounds they make. And of course, the bullying would push you over the edge, children spitting on you, punching you, and never being held accountable. So I would have meltdowns. And teachers and members of staff who I've never seen would actually be allowed to grab me. They would physically restrain me. And it gets pretty dark, much the same with police. There have been times when somebody would intentionally try to upset me or provoke me or simply making me cry. And I mean, look at me, big shoulders and everything like that. I've been like this since a young age. When authority figures, police, you know, higher positions of management in retail, as I've worked in retail as well, higher positions in the school system, when they see when they see Black people with disabilities, whether they knew you had them or not. And the majority of the time, for those of us that are able to obtain an IEP or different forms of special education and help in school, they were well aware that I had a disability. But when they see the shape of our bodies, the tone of our skin, they immediately see the word aggression in the back of their minds. And in their subconscious, it pushes these authority figures to grab us. When somebody like me is restrained, especially in regards to having echolalia as well, you may repeat things that people are saying around you, but they'll be a garbled mess and they won't be in the exact order they were said. Like if somebody were to say something terrible to me, I remember one incident where a bunch of kids had essentially jumped me, and when I told the teacher about it and I had a meltdown, it escalated further and further, and eventually I was restrained by a teacher, a para, and a member of staff. I've been through so many schools, I can't even remember which exact school this was, not that it's really relevant, but in my mind, all I remember is the words, almost like physical words appearing, I need to get away, I need to get away, I need to get away, and trying to repeat what they were saying. They were asking me questions, much like these terrible officers did to Matthew. They were completely they were completely out of procedure. When that happens to somebody, you call a damn ambulance, you don't call, you know, several other squad cars, you don't call for backup, you don't put somebody through this. But the same thing that happened to him, where he was in a state of trauma, he was hurt, he was injured. And when you're injured like that, whether you're neurotypical or you're neurodiverse and autistic, people shouldn't question you, they should help you. And the same thing happened with me, where these individuals multiple times in my life questioned me. And they'll ask you questions, and as you try to explain yourself, you can't physically explain yourself, especially for autistic individuals who deal with echolalia, who deal with going nonverbal. When you try to repeat what the individual said in order to answer their questions, it's not possible. And what I see happening with this case is a bunch of cops realized somebody was injured in numerous ways by this accident, decided to question him into a mess. He was already hurt, and they continuously questioned him at his most vulnerable, likely knowing that he could not respond. I mean, I'm looking at the history of Virginia Beach, the Virginia Beach Police Department, and that entire area in itself and how things work there. They know, it's not like they don't know about the existence of people with disabilities, of people with autism. And what they did was they questioned somebody who was in a state of shock and trauma, expecting for a clear answer, knowing that he couldn't give one, so that they can then utilize the answer that he gave, that he tried to give, to incriminate him and say that he had done something wrong, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
It does make perfect sense. And yes, let me unmute you, CC, if I haven't already. It's going so slow. I'm trying. Okay, go ahead. I'm
Hi,
sorry.
everybody. Just real quick, my name is Cece. I got introduced to this case by Amber Riley the other day when I met Miss Laverne. But my personal story, I have a degree in criminal justice and my undergrad is in special education. And I worked in speds for the last 12, 15 years. I'm the one that goes and sits on this hot cement floor in the middle of summer with the kid who's having a meltdown and tells everybody to walk away because I can usually talk them down without having to restrain them. Fast forward, I have a son who's 9 who wears a size 9 men's shoe. So he's probably going to be 6 foot plus when he's bigger. And I just know it struck me when they were talking about if my son got restrained or was in that situation with anybody of authority, I fear for him because he knows that I love him. And when I have to restrain him or bear hug him to not hurt himself or anybody else in the house, he resists me and freaks out and is repeating everything that I'm saying and begging for me to let go and over and over and over. So I couldn't even imagine if someone he didn't know, he didn't trust, that he knows doesn't love them and has a fear because he hears things, even though we try to keep things away and have conversations, he knows the things that are going on in the world. So he would automatically be on the defense. That's a huge fear for me. So I sit here in tears listening to Matthew's mom because this is our reality. And yet this is one of my biggest fears, and my son's only 9. What's it gonna be like in 10 years for him? He doesn't have a diagnosis yet, but I've worked with autistic kids for probably 20 years. And I know that my son is high functioning. I know he's on the spectrum. So I've been going back and forth with several doctors to try to get him diagnosed. And at this point, it doesn't even matter to me personally because I know how he learns, so I know how to help him. But just quick version, because I don't want to take up too much time, but that's what sticks out to me because even in this moment, at him being his age, if he had to be restrained by someone in authority, even a principal or something, he would lose it and he would fight back because at that point it would be fight or flight. Because with me, with someone he knows and trusts, it's still hard. So I couldn't even imagine with someone that he doesn't know or have a rapport with, what that would be like. And yeah, that's the quick version. So I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to have met Matthew's mom and to be involved and to spread the word. And if there's anything where I can ever help from position to getting things out there, information or writing letters or whatever, I'm all in. So now I told her, like I mentioned to her the other day, now I know, so now I'm in. So I'm not gonna I'm gonna think about it all the time. So now I'm involved. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else autistic who, yes, Cheyenne?
Well, I was listening, first of all, I was listening to what Wolfie was saying. And in regards to the restraint, it took me till just right now to realize that every single time in my childhood that I was ever in trouble in school dealt with an instance where somebody had grabbed me. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 28. I'm 29 now. And now I think back on my childhood and I'm like, every single time dealt with some sort of restraint or grabbing or me just not knowing what was happening in the moment. In regards to echolalia, that was actually one of the things that drew my attention to this case. I had a similar experience where I had a car accident in Virginia. And in my case, the reason I believe that it didn't escalate was because there happened to be a cop watching when the accident happened. Listening to what happened in Matthew's case where he got out and they were saying he was just repeating what everybody around him was saying, that is exactly what happened. You go into a sort of, you freeze for a moment. You don't know what to say, your brain freezes, your mind freezes, people are asking you questions and the only thing you can do is repeat exactly what is being said to you.
M. Taylor, you want to introduce yourself too?
Hi, sure. So I am also diagnosed autistic, obviously, person of color. I think the thing to remember, and it's great that there are so many cohesive stories, is that everybody is different. And so, you know, like for me, when I get overwhelmed and I'm in a situation that is all of a sudden not familiar and it's all of a sudden really stressful, I absolutely freeze. I don't think I ever go into echolalia, but I do know that it's almost like the brain stops, the body keeps going, and so I mean, I don't know. I'm listening and I'm going, oh my goodness, I can almost imagine what he went through, but my response would have been different just because of my natural mechanisms. And I think that's the uniqueness of autism, I think, is a case for having just more understanding in the police force. Because once somebody says, oh, I've got a cousin that does this, or I have this or that, and they cookie cutter us, if they don't see exactly what they're looking for, they just assume it's made up or it's not according to the script. I've been pulled over.
We lost your audio. It went.
All night, and they had their lights going, which automatically is just a sensory overload, and it's in your, like, for me, it's in my teeth, it's in my stomach. I want to throw up. I just can't stop. And I hadn't done, I mean, I was actually stopped. I was at a stoplight when they did a U-turn and pulled over to me. So it was off. It didn't make sense. I didn't understand what was going on. And I think I said, I don't understand. And then it somehow triggered the officer because he went nuts. He called a bunch of other cars. I'm completely stimming out. I've got, I think, 3 cars. And then there was an officer on my left who had a gun. And then there were officers on the right. And to me, this was the double whammy. This was the, oh my God, I'm freaking overloaded. I couldn't have called anybody, even though my phone was right there, if I wanted to, because I couldn't keep up with what was going on. And in the end, I did get let go. I asked him why I got pulled over, because I was like, I was at a stop sign. I don't understand. Can you explain? Can you explain? Can you explain? And I probably sounded belligerent at that point, but it was literally like I was trying to get just things to make sense back to order. And apparently they were looking for a white male in a light blue truck. And here I am, a little black woman in a black SUV. As soon as he pulled me over, instead of calling for backup, he should have recognized, oh, black woman, but he didn't. So that was why I say it was a double whammy, because one, I think I looked suspicious because of my reaction. 2, I was black, so he just went even further. I think that if I were white, there's a possibility that he would have seen distress, because there's studies that have shown that even within the medical field, people tend to have more empathy. Certain people who just have these veils tend to have more empathy with those that look like them, that mirror them. And I didn't mirror anything that was familiar to him, so I was a threat. And that threat caused a lot of guns being trained on me. And luckily for me, I was the type that shut down instead of stimming out, because I would have been shot. I'm sure of it. I called the next day to make a complaint, and they already knew. The sheriff person said, yeah, we actually heard about it, because a couple of the other officers that had arrived had actually complained, because that he got so hyped and he was feeding off of me, even though at that point I wasn't saying anything. I think I might have been involuntarily moving. I don't remember. I just remember the sights and the sounds, but I don't know what I was doing at that point. And I told my talk doc, my therapist, about it our following session the next week, and he gave me a card. And he's like, that's the problem with you. You don't fit any profile. People that, when you're walking down the street, they don't see it. I don't have a big badge that says, caution, meltdown impending, like when I go to the grocery store. So he gave me a card that he said, when you get to the point where you can't talk, hand him this card. And the card basically just said, it just identified me. And it was for if I ever get pulled over again. And it just asked the officers to turn off their lights. These are the things that help me to function. I have all of these little things in place that help me survive. And so, yeah, I might not look like your typical autistic woman, but we go through so much, and then you add a flashing light and we're toast. So anyway, that's my introduction. Sorry, I was a little long-winded. I do that.
You brought up so many good points, and thank you. I'm the same. I freeze, and if I try, it makes it like my ability to form sentences is just frozen, paralyzed, and I try to make words happen, and what comes out, who knows what it's going to be. My friends know that they might type a big long thing to me, and my response is, I'm here, I can't word right now.
Right.
And yeah, Joel, you wanted to say something?
Can I go?
Yeah, I wanted to address, Wolfie had said they weren't, using standard operating procedures. And though that's important from a legal standpoint, there's a bigger issue there, which is that the police often hide behind, we were just, doing standard operating procedures. And when the system is based on violence and not understanding, and there's so much inherent ableism and anti-blackness, standard operating procedures gets people killed, gets people unjustly arrested, gets people traumatized.
That's a very good point. Was that you, Emmanuel, who?
Yes, I wanted to go after.
Yes, please.
Wait, you want me to go now?
Yes, if you're ready.
Okay, I am ready. We were talking about the concept of experiences and what I would do if I was grabbed or restrained. Well, first of all, even dealing with the police in the first place is already a stressful situation, of course, as being a black person, being a black man in the first place. That experience is already stressful. So you are already going into that interaction with a heightened sense of anxiety. And of course, I don't want to speak on everyone's experience. Everyone's experience is different. But if I had been restrained, I speak well, I write well, I'm very articulate, but if someone had grabbed me, I don't think I would have had the capacity for rational thought in that moment. And there are far too many stories like Matthew's where the police just don't handle it correctly, and the justice system doesn't handle it correctly, and the schools don't handle it correctly. There are concurrent systemic problems that we keep having to go over and over and over again. And even that experience alone combined with that interaction with the police, that's tiring. It's tiring to see the exact same problems play out again and again, and then realize that no real radical change is made, just more incremental change, just more slow snail's pace change. So going forward, I can see this being a big issue, and I can see a politician or a prosecutor or a prominent person giving like a 15-second soundbite, and I'm just like, it really doesn't help us. It really doesn't fix our problem. It doesn't really change it systemically, and just there just seems to be a lack of not even there's a lack of acceptance and there's a lack of understanding. And you know, even if I was even able to articulate a sentence clearly, you know, just even interacting with the police is already taking up a lot of spoons, if people know the spoon theory. So even if I was able to articulate a sentence and even when I was able to explain my point, you know, that interaction with the police, I'd be done. Couldn't go to work, couldn't really function for the rest of it. Probably would have, you know, would have passed out or whatever. So yeah, I just, you know, I was bullied. You know, I was bullied in school too. You know, I grew up in a time where I was basically undiagnosed, and my parents didn't understand, and my family didn't understand, and you know, I was high functioning enough so that the school didn't really notice, and you know, it's been hard, and I definitely am consciously aware of the fact that every experience I had with the police based on how I act and my race and my disability, they could have all gone bad, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. You know, I'd be just, you know, I'd be just another hashtag, or I'd be I'd be a media, you know, I'd be a mainstream media's 15 minutes to distract and provoke people. So I'm always grateful, you know, that Tara and Laverne bring up these stories and ask for our perspectives, because it feels like 80 to 90% of the time, most people don't know. Most people are aware of autism, but very few actually can accept it generally. So you know what, that's it. That's all I had. So thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And Kayla, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes. Like I agree with Emmanuel. It's not many accepting about autism, and not many accepting about autism, and then realizing not many awareness in the Black community. People know about it, but what they see on pop culture and things like that. Another way, back to how do it by the police. You know, for me, I don't want to get in trouble. You know, like I said, like by the story with the car, you know, that car wasn't being nice. You know, having me and my other get to the car, but at the same time, it's just awkward. And you know, don't get me wrong. There's some cop are good. There also cop are bad. You know, it just, I don't know. Even though you're supposed to be protected by police and stuff, it's based around racism and ableism and fear, and it's made me angry. It made me frustrated. And it's just kind of like a shame to be American. And what they did to Matthew is just so beyond fucked up. I had to say it's beyond fucked up. This did him dirty. Giving him 50 years in prison for hitting a fucking car. Like, are you kidding me? For hitting a car by accident. You 50 years for that? I asked myself, if Matthew was my wife, he probably don't get that sentencing. But happily he had to be Black, he fucked for life. Basically. And I hate that he only turned 22 a few days ago. I'm about to be 23 this year. It's kind of like messed up. He just have a good life. They all turn away because someone not understanding him. This is beyond messed up.
Kayla made a good point. Someone contacted Laverne and me one day, and I will try to keep my composure to tell this story. It was weird when she contacted us. She started telling us a story about the night of Matthew's accident, and she heard it come over the police scanner. Her sister was an officer, and she said, I know this guy is autistic. I know this guy is autistic. And the reason she said that is 2 years, or not even 2 years prior, a year prior, an autistic white guy had from the same neighborhood as Matthew, and Laverne knew them. He had no driver's license. Matthew, he was fully licensed. He had a good driving record, other than one incident. And we think he also had a seizure that day. But this guy had no driver's license. He did not know how to drive. He drove to a video game store in a plaza, hit a car in the parking lot, freaked out, not having a meltdown, but just, I'm going to get in trouble because I don't have a license. Drove home on the wrong side of the road. This woman who called us was pregnant, and she had 2 children, ages 4 and 2, and she was loading them into her car, and she was only feet away from it. And this guy hit her car so hard, right? I mean, she was seconds from being in the car, that the back seat went through the front grille, and it moved over 40 feet and crashed into her sister's police cruiser. This guy backs up, hits the tree in their yard, goes forward, hits her car again, with her sitting there. She got a good look at his face, and drives away. He's driving through yards. He drove through a police officer's yard and tore the yard up. He hit 14 cars. Most of those were occupied, driving on the wrong side of the road, and went home. Police came. He was sitting there eating, and they asked him, did you have a car accident? His car is sitting there, and the SUV is totaled, sitting in the driveway. I don't know how he managed to even get it home, but he did. And the police said, did you have an accident? He says, no. And he's eating. He went home and fixed himself some food. His mother had no idea. He basically stole his mother's vehicle because he wanted a video game. That guy, and we have the court records, so we know that this is true. That guy got 1 year of unsupervised probation. He never spent a day in jail. He was never put in handcuffs. And not just that, but we looked him up online. And when I looked him up while we were on that call, and I said, he's at Old Dominion University. And that's where Matthew was. And that guy is still at Old Dominion.
Do you want to tell him who his lawyer was?
Oh, no. Please.
Oh, hell to the no.
Oh, no.
It was the same lawyer.
Oh, God.
Oh, hell. Ho, you telling me. You telling me this same lawyer who helped Matthew. Help that guy. Oh, hell no.
Right.
Then sent Matthew out to 50 years in prison and got to be the judge? Oh, hell no. Oh, hell to the no. You gotta be kidding. Oh, hell no.
It's time to disbar that guy. I hope that this results in disbarring.
How do we get that done, man? Please.
Well, she made Judge for selling Matthew out, so there's that.
Joel.
But I,
She made, yeah, she became a judge from Matthew.
I
Oh,
just
she
want to
used
agree
the
with
case.
Kayla because, I mean, not only does it, I think, just sort of shatter your heart to imagine that scene and all those flashing lights and everything everybody's talking about and getting grabbed and all the rest of it. But the fact is, I don't think it really mattered what Matthew said because they made up their minds about him just because he was and he had the skin color he did. I mean, the fact is, this not only did this other kid do everything, but the fact that Matthew said whether he did or not, say he wanted to kill himself, is basically legally meaningless. And that's one of the points that I kept trying to make, is that their entire case that he had any intent to hurt anybody is completely made up.
Yes.
And Joel can affirm this. You don't diagnose somebody as suicidal or having any kind of intent just based on saying something like that. And so really, Matthew was just simply presumed guilty of what they thought of
From the beginning.
And that was that.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes that, it's already so bad. But I found that guy on social media, and he had a Black Lives Matter banner, and he had his profile picture, it had the Black Lives Matter frame around it. And I messaged him hoping that, I don't know ethically if it would be wrong to put him out there like that, if it would be exploitative of me as a reporter, as a publication. But I messaged him and I said who I was, and I said, there's Matthew Rushin, and I sent him some links and said, if you could help us by telling your story, that will be great. And that is the least, that is the lowest low of decent human that a white person could do, would be to just admit that white privilege, because he's the same age, 1 year difference as Matthew, same neighborhood, same school, now same college, the one that Matthew was ripped out of. And he said to me, Matthew needs a good lawyer. So that is, that's, as a white person, he was spared, more than spared. And that is something that and if there is someone who is not white and autistic and wants to speak on this, just interrupt me. But that is something that is just such a huge disparity, because a white person who's autistic gets treated like a child, infantilized, and that's ableism, that is. But a Black autistic gets treated like, Matthew was just above, he just became an adult. So barely an adult, but he gets treated like, he should have totally been 100% responsible, like an older person. He's put in handcuffs. He wasn't allowed to go to a doctor. His parents, they made his dad wait in the rain on the sidewalk for 4 hours. And then they took him to the precinct without ever even letting his dad see him. So, but this guy's mother, the white guy's mother, came out and screamed at the cops. And it made them nervous. I know this because one of the cops' sisters is who called us that day. And so that's That's a huge difference. And that is why we have to talk about race. We have to talk about white privilege. Yes, we all face ableism. Yes, it's possible that a white autistic could have gone through what Matthew went through. But look at the difference just in these two cases. Same age, same neighborhood, same diagnoses. But, you know, the one guy hits 14 cars. He didn't have a seizure. He didn't have a meltdown. He was fully sitting there eating food and calm as a cucumber, versus Matthew, who has a seizure or a neurological event. He can't remember. He loses consciousness. Sure.
First of all, my name is Kevin Molina. Second of all, I am from Puerto Rico, living in the United States of America, San Antonio, Texas. I've been diagnosed with autism since the age of 3. And when I first heard about the Matthew Rushin case, my blood was boiling, basically not just because of another racial discrimination, racial profiling case, but also because a couple years ago, the San Antonio Police Department tried to arrest me under the so-called false suspicion of reckless destruction of government property. The story was I was at a community center on the outdoors playing basketball, and then I went to a bus stop after a long night of playing hoops. I went to Pizza Hut to get me some pizza and food, and I was just listening to my music, and then all of a sudden, 2 cop cars show up, one in an SUV and one in a regular car in the form of a V formation. And when you see a V formation in front of a bus stop, you know something ain't right. So when I had 3 officers in a bowling pin formation look at me, asking me what I'm doing there, and I told them just dancing to my music, when they told me that somebody called them for a fake destruction of government property charge, I knew something was wrong, because behind me, there was nobody there. It was just a fence of warehouse stuff, like old barnyard stuff. And it's just me and 2 other guys waiting to go home on a public bus. So what kind of a person would make a phone call like that? And that's when I knew I was in for a racial profiling incident. Luckily for me, I got to survive that night. But hearing fast forward to now, I couldn't be any more pissed off, because Matthew seems like a really nice kid, misunderstood heavily, because as the story of America goes, America has a hard time understanding its minorities, understanding its disabled, understanding the LGBT community. And no matter how many times celebrities and people who are oppressed tell them to stop it, the majority finds a way to continue going.
Amen.
It's like one ear out the other. It's like we are more likely to talk to a wall and get a better response out of the wall than we are to some of these people, man. You might as well call them a wall, a walking wall right now. And it's sad, because before my incident, I read an article about an 8-year-old white autistic kid shot up in a minivan thanks to the police. I don't know why, but they were trying to look for the father. But it saddens me that police brutality doesn't just affect one set of people. It affects multiple people. Even if it doesn't affect your family directly, sooner or later, either affect your family or the family of your friends or the family of your teachers that you love and care about. Sooner or later, somebody's gonna get hit, and this is not a game, and people need to wake the fuck up.
Yes. Thank you.
Well said.
That was awesome.
Yes.
So moving from that, Matthew got called, and Sarah, I would like for you to take this one. Sarah's an occupational therapist. Matthew, as we've been doing this, and Matthew's case has gotten traction, the prosecutor writes a letter to the governor while Matthew's case is in the middle of being reviewed, and states that he and other people found Matthew's behavior to be callous and cold, unfeeling. And I can't stand that, but we get that a lot, and people think that we don't care, that we're not feeling, that we don't have empathy at all. And there's a medical and neurological reason for that. And Sarah, can you speak to that? Are you muted? Let me do what I can here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. First of all, Mrs. Rushin, I'm so thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your persistence. My name is Sarah. I run the Autistic OT, and whenever needed, I will provide occupational therapy advice, whatever I can do. And so what Tara is speaking to is something that is, she's correct, wildly misunderstood, where people assume that autistics are not capable of connection or capable of understanding what somebody else is going through. But the real problem is that we understand too much. We actually really put ourselves in that position of the other person. And so when I remember Matthew in reaching out for echolalia, he was reaching for connection. I think so many of us know that experience of trying to understand what's going on, and we're taught to really trust the police as authority, that they're going to protect and serve. We're told that. And I know that that must be particularly true for Matthew. I grew up, my father was stationed at the NSA. And so I know that culture. I know the trust that he had. And I remember the interrogation and Matthew just thinking and talking out loud and trying to process through what he needed to say. And to me, some people see that as cold. What I see is a person who was in trouble, who didn't feel well, was likely having a seizure at that time, if not some type of neurological event. Well, of course, he was in trauma. And we all know that in trauma, we're not able to access those thoughts that we need that are all the way up here in the front of our brain, because all we can do is what's in the back of our brain, and that's survive. And that's what Matthew was trying to do. And he was trying to do that through connection. He was trying to understand, is it possible that something happened? We know the truth. I believe Matthew. And what they did was, and Wolfhart, amazing, Wolfie, yeah, they questioned him to the point that he was disoriented. And he just wanted that connection. And that's what I saw. And it breaks my heart when people say that it's cold and it's callous, when the reality is we're just trying to find the way for you to hear us, because we know that you don't yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another thing that in the interrogation room, and hopefully most of you have seen these videos, Matthew answered their questions extremely literally and detailed. They asked him what was he thinking at that time, and every single neurotypical person would have said some emotional thing about, you know, oh, I was just afraid that I did this and that I maybe killed someone, and I was so upset that I had this accident and I was confused. But Matthew literally said exactly what was in his mind at that minute, which was he was thinking that, you know, this is another accident, and his father is going to be upset with him. And he said, my dad is a gentle person. He's never been physical. He's not, you know, he won't yell at me, but I'll feel his emotions and I'll feel disappointment. Mm-hmm. But when he said that, I saw the look on the officers' faces, and I knew that they were thinking, you said the wrong thing. Mm. And right. That is something that, you know, we as autistics beg people, do not say high and low functioning. because Matthew would have qualified by all counts as, quote, high functioning. But look where Matthew is for having a seizure. And I have been in in so many problems in my life professionally for just answering questions what I thought, what they literally asked and not what the subtext was. And people would have to tell me later, you know, a superintendent of a school one time came and gave us this fiery speech, and he wanted us to help spread the word. Well, I essentially quoted him, and the next morning he showed and sent a letter home to parents, and the next morning he's waiting for me, the superintendent. He yells at me for 45 minutes. He's crying. He's so upset because I said the things that he said about city council, because he told us to. I didn't understand that when he said powers that be and put it in quotes, air quotes. I typed powers that be and put it in quotes. I didn't understand the nuance of why that happened. And I was so close to, I mean, had I been fired, I went to school for all those years for nothing. That would have been the beginning of the end for me, you know. But I'm white and I'm female. But that high functioning myth, it just means that people do not believe anything that we say is autistic. And every time that I see autistics online trying to explain echolalia to people, they say, he went to college, you're just making excuses for him. Or I try to explain what a meltdown is. They say, you know, oh, well, he was answering questions. He wasn't having a meltdown. He was high functioning. He had a job. That's what the prosecutor said. He said, I want to remind everybody that this is a person who was an engineering student who was employed. So he's saying, if Matthew can make a sandwich and do math, he's not really autistic and disabled, and we don't have to care that his brain is wired differently because he can do things that most people, most adults can do. And so this is why we don't say high functioning. And for other autistics, we call them low functioning. That is so dehumanizing, and it undercuts their potential immediately in anybody's mind who hears it. And so that's just something that I wanted to say. Jules is here. I don't think she saw the disaster at the last minute Zoom link that didn't work, and so she wasn't here at the beginning. Jules, did you want to say anything? Okay, she might not be at the mic right now, or I put her on this.
Okay, I tried to unmute and
there you are.
Unmute myself. Sorry. You know, this whole thing is awful. I'm not as familiar with Matthew's case as a lot of the people on this call. I've read but it's kind of like last minute, so I can't jog my memory like that. But I will say that here in Minnesota, we recently passed law enforcement training legislation. I'm the chair of the Minnesota Senate Autism Council, and we worked really hard with a lot of advocacy organizations to pass legislation to get law enforcement officers trained in how to support autistic people within the state. And it just passed, I want to say like it was 2 weeks ago or so. And what will happen is law enforcement officers are required to undergo new training every 4 years. And we have a requirement that every 4 years they'll have 4 hours of training in autism. And it's not enough, but their training is really ridiculous as it is. They are now going to be required to dedicate 8% of their training hours to autism training, which is pretty significant when you think about it, but it is not enough. And until there's a broader cultural shift, this, you know, every 4 years training isn't going to be impactful. So we really need broader acceptance. We really need people to put an effort into understanding how autistic people experience crises. And it's not even always, I shouldn't say always, it's not always an interaction in which the autistic person is a suspect either. When an autistic person calls for help when they're experiencing a crisis, law enforcement officers don't know how to handle that, because a lot of the time we might be in the midst of a meltdown, we may be dysregulated because it is a crisis. And for being people that really need to know what to expect in the midst of chaos, we're gonna more often than not have a difficult time. So it's really important to be able to recognize what's happening when an autistic person is experiencing a crisis. And it's important to know that people won't always be aware of their diagnosis. People won't be able to disclose their diagnosis, especially when it comes to women and people of color who we already know don't have equal access to evaluations and accurate diagnoses. So this training that we have does not require a person who disclosed their diagnosis. It doesn't require participation in a program. It's supposed to be just like broad across the board. These officers have the training. They should be able to access some skills that they learned to hopefully de-escalate stuff. Also here in Minnesota, we had a young man named Kobe Heisler killed by Brooklyn Center police. I want to say it was 11 months ago now, almost a year. And the police officers who killed him were not charged. They recently made that announcement about a week ago. The officers who invaded his house, by all accounts, they were asked not to come. They were told that the situation was handled. Kobe was de-escalated. They demanded access to the house. They didn't have a warrant, and the grandparents of Kobe asked them to leave, and they insisted on coming into the house. They were sitting across from each other having a conversation, and the cops didn't know how to interact with him, so they re-escalated him, and he ran away from them, and there was a tussle. They knocked over a couch, and they killed him, and they will not face any consequences for it. They claim that he had a butter knife, but they won't show the family. They won't show the family the tapes showing that part of the conflict. It's really a messed up situation. But this could happen anywhere. My children are Afro-Indigenous, and they are also autistic, and they're at very high risk of police violence, and it's terrifying as a parent. So that's what I got. That's my word vomit. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We are going on 10:30 Eastern time, and we'll just say a few things, and we are going to do this more. Laverne, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up from the case to get autistic perspectives on, or anything that you've learned in the last 2 months, or how your perspective has changed? Just any thoughts you have.
First, I'd like to thank everybody, for being on here. And I've learned so much. I've learned the behavior traits. I've learned, going through living this with Matthew for almost 20 years of my life, I'm a pretty good judge of, an autistic person. I can identify them because of living it and going through, the psychologist visits and stuff like that. But yeah, I've learned a lot. And what I want to ask is, you know, when you're in that moment of disparity and you can't focus, just like Matthew when he left that first scene, what that hit and run. So when he left that first accident, I don't understand like how his anxiety went from 0. I mean, I can, but I would, if anybody out there has ever been through where your anxiety level goes from 0 to 1,000 in a split second, and then to add on the autistic traits, that would be good to understand. I just, I'm emotional. I am so right now. But I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot within these couple of weeks, actually 2 months now. And I'm just taking it all in. And I can understand from an autistic perspective of what possibly happened, or maybe even what was going on in Matthew's mind. There's a lot to learn. I'm still learning. Still learning.
Is there anybody who wants to talk about Kevin? Let me get your mic unmuted here. There we go. Oh, somebody else pushed it at the same time. Okay, now it's good.
Can you hear me now, anybody?
Yes, you're good.
How ironic that the country that we live in, the same country that we live in, expects us, after everything that we've been through, to remain patriotic and to remain grateful of the country we live in and act like there's nothing wrong with it. You know, if there's anything I've learned from, for example, LeBron James speaking out on racism in the aftermath of the George Floyd case, is that people love rich and famous people when they do their jobs and stay one-dimensional, but as soon as these people prove how three-dimensional they are and how they got their eyes on the rest of reality, that's when they start getting angry. So they have this misperception that people in power like LeBron, they're living these fine, ritzy lives because they have money, they have power, they're immune to racism and tyranny. But long story short, LeBron had the N-word spray painted on his house wall. So does money really make you immune to anything? No. So I'm glad that these celebrities and professional athletes are speaking out for us on our behalf and fighting along with us. And that's why I love the NBA, the WNBA, and all these people doing this, because we need it. Because the only thing people see is money, fame, and power. They don't see the struggle. They don't see the pain. They don't see the anguish that guys like Kobe used to go through just to get where they are right now. They think that they've lived privileged their whole lives, when the reality is they have to fight for it. And these people, they're just angry because they're getting these 9-to-5 jobs. They're still behind on bills. All they see is money, 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 debt, 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 bills, bills, bills. But they don't realize that sometimes the grass truly isn't any greener on the other side, depending on what you're talking about.
Thank you for that. Kayla, did you want to say something? Did I see you wave?
No, I'm just what I'm hearing. I just feel it rage. It's just so beyond mess up. Like, I feel sorry for Matthew. Like, he should not go through this. Like, and Miss Varane, you should not go through it either. And y'all should not be treated like this. It's very screwed up. Like, I live in North Carolina. I'm like a neighbor to y'all. That's just something. I don't know. It just enraged me just hearing that. even though we're supposed to live in the best country on earth, like I forgot his name that quick. But I thought about we the best country on earth, knowing we at its worst. Why we can't get nothing right in this country? If we create equal, why we have so many disputed everywhere we go? If we create equal, we should not be careful who we are. Like this is ridiculous. Or jail, whatever. It's ridiculous. It's just a lot of pain and suffering in this country. It's a lot of pain. Everybody frustrated. LGBT frustrated. Black autistic community frustrated. Autistic community, disability frustrated. Minority frustrated. Muslim community frustrated. Everybody frustrated. You name it. We're just tired. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I just feel like every time I see this country is just, I don't feel American no more. I don't feel American as hearing this. I don't feel like American.
I'm with you, Kayla. Since I've been doing this,
Me too.
I have had so many people reach out to me to say, you know, the same thing happened to my family. Yesterday or day before, a man on Instagram wanted me to make his son's story public, and he sent me a link, and there was a video of body cam footage or a cell phone video. His son was in a wheelchair and a paraplegic, and he was in the road near the nursing home that he lived in, and the police kept yelling at him, "Put your hands up," but he was paralyzed. He could move some, so he's moving around, and they just keep yelling. He can't speak, and he's trying to move, and his movements are just frenetic. And I watched it, and it was like watching George Floyd, but the man was in a wheelchair and he couldn't speak. He was just sitting there. That's all he could do. But we get a lot of these stories, and we get a lot more since we've been doing this, and we're a small nonprofit with only volunteers that, you know, we don't have any legal power. We can just publish stories according to who has time and wants to do the work. But like Kayla said, you know, everybody is exhausted. And that is the life of an autistic person, and especially an autistic person who's an advocate and who's out there hearing these horror stories every day, and even more so an autistic person of color. And we have to scream from the mountaintops, like Kevin said, to get anybody to pay attention to us and hear what we're saying. So that puts so much more effort on us. And I will put a link in the chat in just a second to a big list of autistic blogs and websites, own voice websites. We need people to listen. And so if you're not autistic, and especially if you're a non-autistic person who has autism as very integral part of your life, we pretty unanimously are begging you to stop stop doing your searches on Autism Speaks and parent-led organizations, and listen to autistic people. We need you to hear this. Like Kayla said, we're exhausted emotionally, and looking at this lineup here, I know a lot of autistic people in here are they're doing 8-10 hours a day of free labor, and they're begging people to pay attention. So we will close up in just a minute.
Sarah, can I answer Laverne's question before you close?
Yes, and then we'll get to M. Taylor after you.
Okay. I think Laverne asked how the autistic person can go from 0 to 100 quite quickly. In my experience, I'm not speaking for everybody that has the same autistic experience. It's just usually from what I've seen is autistic, well, myself included, we're already dealing with a high level of sensitivity already. We can, sight, smell, sounds, we are already heightened on that regard, even though if we're high functioning enough, we look like there's nothing wrong, but we're already operating from a state of like heightened awareness from that point. So if you bring in an interaction with the police, they're confrontational, they want all of their attention on you. So then you add that in. So it wouldn't be, I'm not going to speak for everyone again, like I'm saying, it's not really 1 from 100. It's really more like 50 to 100, or maybe like 75 to 100. And literally it could be anything. It could just be a sight. It could be a sound. It could be a smell. Just anything going on like that. And then the environment also can play into a factor too. It could be too hot, it could be too cold. They could have had some other issue that they were perseverating on, and it was already stressing them out, and then that interaction with the police just kind of put them over the edge. So it varies. I just wanted to answer her question, and you can continue, Tara.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
You're welcome.
And M. Taylor, do you want to go? Or wait, is she muted again? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but first I do want to agree with him. I do want to go, but first I do want to agree with, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Emmanuel. There's a really great paper that my doctor gave me about, what was it called? Intense brain theory, where basically there's constantly stuff going on. So if you think of child development, birth to 3, we create more synapses, more little connections in our brain than we do our entire life from then on till death. When you create a synapse, basically, when you learn something, you create these little connections, and then you prune them when you don't need them anymore, like just old memories, etc. And it allows room for more space utilization. The autistic brain actually doesn't prune as effectively as the neurotypical brain. So we have all of this stuff that's constantly going, it's constantly firing. So it's true what you had said earlier about high functioning versus not. The doctor said is you just don't look, you can't see what's going on. So yeah, that's probably how somebody can go from supposedly 0 to 100. They were probably already at 99. But what I wanted to say, I'm just now in Washington State, back in my home. I've been back here for about a year. Prior to living here, I lived in Colorado. Most hated place I've ever lived. But while I was there, I was the organizer of a group for women on the spectrum. And we would do a monthly video chat, and it was specifically it's more of a social thing. Every once in a while, we would have, a gripe fest if needed, but it was It was a way for women to connect with us, with other women who have those shared experiences, because you hear a lot, I don't know. So for me, being Black and autistic and female, finding something that looked like me, like even Barbie dolls, they didn't look like me growing up. So then you finally get that first, mocha colored Barbie doll. It's so exciting to have that thing that looks like you. Well, you add in being autistic, and the chances of you finding that, oh yeah, connection is a lot lower. And so I'd like to go ahead later on and give you my information, because life, but it's sort of a mix of social, where we just kind of, it's easier for some of us just to meet online anyway, even before the pandemic, because autistic. But also, every couple of little group chats, we would have somebody in from the clinical community, so to speak. So we actually had one psychologist who basically facilitated, because we all basically talked about it, a topic on sex on the spectrum and the sensory issues that kind of make it, just all those questions that you don't have anyone else to ask unless they're on the spectrum. So I wanted to kind of put a plug out on that I have kind of a sisterhood group. And if anyone would like to join, then hit me up and I will give the information. And I'm really grateful for what you're doing for the social justice aspect of it. Being autistic is, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's you never really fit. And then being Black, you're told that you don't fit. So autistic or not, it's just nice. It's nice to have allies. So just a big thank you from me. And to the moms, my God, thank you. Not everybody has that. I did, but not everybody does. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll let Cheyenne say something, and then we're going to close, but we'll be doing this again very soon.
I was just going to say, you were asking for some insight on what could have possibly been going through his mind when he hit the first car. And obviously none of us were there. None of us were in that situation, but just thinking of the things that I would have done, why I would have fled, were, one, sometimes my reaction is to run because I may not know, I may be afraid of the confrontation that's coming up. Not that I'm trying to get out of trouble, but I might not be able to explain myself. Sometimes it's just a reaction. There's something happens and I just take off. I really can't, I don't know. I don't really know. To me, there's a lot of things that can add to that situation, the heightened senses and the fear of what might come, for me at least.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
Thank you so much. That's the thing right there that you said. We learned from Matthew's first cellmate he was with for 6 months. We didn't know this. It wasn't in any of the transcripts, but Matthew told his first cellmate that story a ton of times. He said the man hit him, which the man did hit him, but they painted it like it was Matthew's fault. And he said the man looked at him with so much anger, like it was Matthew's fault. And then he was going to exchange insurance information, but the man sat there in the middle of the road and made 2 phone calls, and Matthew kept trying to prompt him to get out of the intersection because he didn't want to block traffic illegally, because that's dangerous and a worse accident could have happened. But Matthew said, that man's anger, it it scared him. And so I think, Cheyenne, you nailed it. You totally did. As we wrap up, Joel, did you want to weigh in on anything? Or Marcia, just that you've heard, and then we'll do
There
this
was
again?
there was one thread that was covered earlier, and you know, I think it's important to circle back very briefly, which was this idea of how neurotypical people perceive autistic people. And even if he had, you know, flat affect, even if he had was in meltdown, even under best conditions, there are some studies that show that just there was a study in 2017, I forget who the author was, where they had neurotypical people judging autistic people by what they wrote, and then versus what they said in real life, and it was the same exact words, and they judged them harshly just on like a second of interaction as not wanting to have anything to do with them. And this has been replicated a number of times. So not only do we have implicit bias against Black people that's rampant, we also have implicit bias against autistic people that is rampant based on just minutia. And you know, the implicit bias training doesn't really work. So it really is about representation, and autistic people, you know, talking about this in public and what it's like, and things like this, where you know, their quirks shouldn't be judged, shouldn't be seen as something dangerous or odd or mean, just who they are, and that's okay.
Thank you. And Marcia, did you have, as there other neurodivergent experts in the room, psychologists, did you have any final thoughts?
Well, just how you know, grateful I am to so many people who talked about their experiences, and that, you know, from within experiences, they totally make sense. You know, I mean, if you're sensitive to sound and light and all that, and all these lights are going on and all this stuff is happening, and there's, you know, it makes sense that you'd get really upset. If, you know, how many teenagers get really upset, much less a kid who's hypersensitive and has all these other things going on and all these neurological things going on. And, you know, your heart breaks for Matthew, but also for just how intensely sensitive and the kind of experiences people have had, but the kind of horrific bullying and misunderstanding and treatment people have had. And when you cross, as Joel said, Black and autistic, it's like, you know, two strikes. And the one thing I'm very sad to say is I wish I could say that the medical profession, or the, when I said I was an expert, I did it like this, because I think the whole idea that non-autistic people are telling autistic people what autistic people feel is absolutely absurd.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we are going to close. I am the founder of Neuroclassic. It's neuroclassic.com, and I'm putting it in the chat so you can see it in my email. If you're autistic, I would love to platform you, and especially if you are a Black or Indigenous person of color, we will prioritize your voice. We will give you accommodations if writing is not your thing. Editors, you can voice record, and we will have someone transcribe for you, and we will do what we can to promote you and your voice. So reach out, please, to me if you want. Non-autistic people, visit our site and share it, and help us be heard, please. And that is it. Laverne, did you want to say anything as you have the last word?
I just want to thank everybody for tonight. Your insights, again, with all my heart. Thank you so much for your love and support. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, that's it for tonight. Thank you all for coming, and we will hopefully see you soon and do this again. I will leave the meeting open and unmute everyone, and that's probably going to be chaos if anybody just, we're finished, so you can leave now if you want, but if anybody just wants to chat for a little bit, I'll just unmute everyone and you can have at it or leave if you want. And that is, I'm stopping the recording, so you don't have to censor yourself.
I just wanted to